When I was 3, my family migrated to the US. We lived a comfortable life, and I had a happy childhood. My parents were a bit superstitious, so we had a few strange traditions, and they would always tell me stories about the kapres, aswangs, mananangals, tikbalangs, tayanaks, and the like. Filipino monsters always seemed scarier to me than Western ones. Might be because whenever my parents talked about them, they made it sound like they had first-hand experience with the creatures. They probably just did that for dramatic effect. We moved back to the Philippines when my grandmother got sick. I was only 16 at the time, and I had to readjust to a new way of living. She died 3 years after we moved there, but we decided to stay. My grandmother lived in the province, so everything was completely different from what I was used to. My neighbors would always go back into their homes before dark. There were no town curfews set in place, but they did it anyway. I was taught to say, "Tabi-tabi po," anytime I passed by an anthill or a big tree. Whenever my friend visited, he would yell, "Tao po," at the door. We weren't allowed to sweep the floor at night. Basically, there was a lot of things we should or shouldn't do. I never really understood why everyone found these things so important. I just followed along out of respect, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself a believer. So when I finally moved to the city for college, I was more than ready to live a life without all the weird, superstitious beliefs. That was a few years ago. I recently graduated with a degree in marketing. I also met my fiancé in college, and I was really ready to take him home to meet the family. I had no debt. I already had a job lined up for when I got back to the city. Life was good. My fiancé asked, "Are you sure they're gonna like me?" as we were driving to the province. "There's nothing not to love," I reassured him. He gave me a soft smile in return. Mir was born and raised in the Philippines. He's never left the country. We were extremely different considering I was pretty westernized. We disagreed on a lot of things in the beginning, but we eventually found some middle ground as we got to learn about each other more. He was more on the conservative side, so a lot of things I was used to bothered him. But we got past all that and got to a pretty good place. I was proud of how our relationship grew. There are a few other strange things about him, but I didn't really mind too much. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, he'd go to the bathroom for a half hour or so. I rarely noticed him get up, but when I did, he would just tell me he had stomach problems. Another thing was how he always wore this weird necklace. He never took it off, not even in the shower or when he went to sleep. But those were just little things I eventually got over. "We're here," I said as I parked the car. I unloaded our luggage and headed towards the door of my grandparents' house. My mother greeted me and my father took our bags inside. "Lo, who's this?" my mom inquired upon seeing Mir behind me. "Mamang, this is Mir, and we have something important to tell you, but we need the rest of the family here too," I said eagerly. Mir smiled at her and gave her a small wave. "It's nice to meet you, ma'am." For some reason, my mom didn't look so pleased. "I don't like him, anak. He has no manners." "What are you talking about? He just got here and you've barely gotten to know him yet." "Anak, listen to me. That man will bring nothing but misfortune to us all." "I can't believe you're saying all this right now. Just at least give him a chance." I walked towards Mir, took his hand, and practically stormed into the house. My whole family was there. My father, brothers, sister, grandfather, cousins, and my aunts and uncles. They all looked surprised to see me drag some unfamiliar man into the house. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Mir. He's my fiancé," I announced. My announcement received mixed reactions, mostly confusion. My sister Clara was the first one to speak up. She plastered on a huge grin and said, Welcome to the family." Clara walked over to Mir and intended to give him a hug, but was stopped short. I'm sorry, I'm not too big on physical contact with COVID and monkeypox and all that, but I appreciate the gesture," Mir stated and gave her a smile instead. "Oh, yeah, totally." Everyone else followed suit with their congratulations, and we ended the day with a family dinner. I had some champagne to celebrate the news of our engagement as well. My mother remained quiet the whole time, but we had a good time nonetheless. At around 3:15 that night, Mir had gone to the bathroom again at some point. I tried to go back to sleep, but I heard a strange, fluttering noise in the backyard. I went outside to investigate. I know, big horror movie trope. The Asian person goes somewhere alone and dies first, but my life wasn't a movie, so I didn't see the harm. I saw Mir standing behind a wall. It looked like he was observing something. I inched closer to see what he was staring at. What I saw would forever be burned into my memory, like hot iron branding a mark right onto the surface of my brain. I thought it was a chopped up log or something at first. But then I saw the legs, and it started to move ever so slightly. It was the lower half of a human body. I nearly screamed at the sight, but Mir saw me and shoved his hand onto my mouth. He gestured to me to go back inside and lock the door behind us. Once we were inside, he put a finger to his lips as if to say quiet. He disappeared into the kitchen to grab me a glass of water and helped me back into the bedroom. Lou, I need you to listen very carefully. What you just saw, you weren't supposed to see that. But there are creatures far beyond our understanding that share this world with us. Sometimes, they walk this earth like they're one of our own. Mir explained to me as I occupied myself with drinking from my glass. Look, the province, it's different here. The culture is heavily influenced by superstition. A lot of culture is lost in the city. It's safer there because the number of people and the lack of belief. While being superstitious can help the people in the province in some way, since they know how to ward them off, their belief is also what gives these creatures power. He continued. So, what was that thing? I asked him, still in shock from the sight I had seen earlier. I think you know. Your parents told you, right? The stories of beautiful people who turn into monsters at night, the ones whose bodies split in half, the upper half going off to feed on its prey. Manananggal. Yes, they're one of the most dangerous ones, especially to people like us. Like us? We're about to be newlyweds. They usually feed on pregnant women and newlyweds, but they're not limited to that. Sometimes, it could just be someone who fell asleep with their window open. Why newlyweds? Pregnant women make more sense, I guess. I know monsters tend to like fetuses? I'm not sure. There are a lot of different iterations. One of the more popular ones stated that they were left at the altar, so they seek out new spouses to be. I think that's why our mother wasn't too keen on the idea of us getting married. She knows who the Manananggal is. Probably trying to protect it. Why would she try to protect one? They're monsters! Not really. It's more complicated than that. You see, they're human at first. Or, at their core would be more accurate. It's kind of like a parasite or an infection. What do you mean? Legend says there's a chick inside of a Manananggal. It's created inside another Manananggal and given to women to eat to pass on the infection. Well, how do you kill one? It's not that easy. You can't kill the actual Manananggal because the chick would still be alive. You can, however, get rid of the chick and therefore get rid of the infection. But again, not that easy. So, we just have to find out who it is and get rid of the chick? If it's someone your mother knows, and she probably knows this method, but hasn't been able to execute it, you have to catch the upper half of the Manananggal, tie it upside down to a tree, make it vomit out the chick. I can see why she hasn't been able to do it yet, but with the proper help and materials, she can probably pull it off. Do you have the proper materials? Well, not yet, but I can gather them. I'll need help from an Albuyaro and maybe 2 other people. I had a difficult time processing all this information. Honestly, I couldn't even believe I was having this conversation. I thought I would just wake up the next day and this would have all just been some terrible nightmare. But it wasn't. The next day, right after breakfast, Mir was asking around about an Albuyaro, some sort of witch doctor who practices folk healing. My mom was still avoiding me. I almost wanted to go right up to her face and tell her that I knew her secret. but Mir told me I should hold off on telling my mom until he's fixed the problem. I know that my mother was just trying to protect me, but I just couldn't get over the fact that she was also protecting this thing. By midnight, we were staking out in a little shed we had in the backyard to reveal the identity of the manananggal. I thought I was shocked the first time, but to say I was unprepared for what I saw tonight would be an understatement. "Who is that? Do you know her?" Mir asked me. "Yes. It's my grandmother."